What if the habits that shape your entire destiny could be mastered, not through motivation, but through discipline, as steady as stone? The kind of discipline that doesn't flinch at hardship, that doesn't fold under pressure, that doesn't wait for inspiration. I'm talking about the kind of internal strength forged by the Stoics, led by none other than the Roman emperor himself, Marcus Aurelius. In a world flooded with distraction, indulgence, and instant gratification, true, discipline is rare, but it's also powerful. Aurelius didn't just write about virtue and resolve. He lived it day after day in the face of war, betrayal, and disease. He built habits not on mood, but on meaning. Today I'll show you how to take his ancient wisdom and turn it into modern momentum, how to wake up like an emperor, act like a soldier, and live with the kind of integrity that doesn't break, doesn't bend, and doesn't bow to weakness. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. So if you're ready to stop starting over, to build a system stronger than willpower alone, and finally get control of your time, your actions, and your legacy, stick with me. And if this kind of timeless strategy resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to our channel, because each week we break down ancient wisdom and modern tools to help you live deliberately and lead like a Stoic. The war within. Why habits fail without inner command. Look around you. What do you see? A world of broken resolutions, abandoned goals, failed attempts at change. Perhaps you know this battlefield well. The countless times you've declared this. Time will be different, only to find yourself back where you started, fighting the same old wars against the same old habits. But I ask you, have you ever wondered why the strongest among us seem unmoved by these struggles? Why certain individuals appear to operate on a different frequency entirely, their actions as consistent as the rising sun? The answer lies not in their circumstances, but in their command, their inner sovereignty. The same power that allowed me, as Emperor of Rome, to rise before dawn each day to attend to my duties, not because I felt inspired, but because it was necessary. The same force that compelled me to write my reflections each night, even as war raged at our borders and plague ravaged our cities. You see, most people approach habits as if they were delicate negotiations with themselves. They bargain with their weaknesses, make deals with their desires. I'll start Monday, just this once, when I feel more motivated. They treat their own minds as if they were unruly subjects to be appeased rather than governed. This is why they fail. True habit formation begins with a fundamental shift in understanding. You are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. You are the power that observes them, commands them, transcends them. Just as an emperor does not beg his legions to follow orders, you must not plead with yourself to act rightly. Think of your mind as a vast empire. Within its borders wage constant battles between duty and desire, between principle and impulse. Without strong central command, this empire fractures. Habits break, discipline crumbles. But with proper governance, with true inner sovereignty, even the most turbulent thoughts bow to your will. I have seen men of great privilege squander their potential through weak self-command, and I have seen slaves, yes, slaves, achieve moral greatness through iron discipline. The difference was never in their circumstances. It was in their relationship with themselves. This is the first principle you must understand. External forces can influence your actions, but they cannot command them. Only you possess that power. When you truly grasp this, when you stop blaming your environment, your emotions, your past failures, you begin to access the kind of strength that reshapes destinies. But understand this, I do not speak of tyrannical self-control, of white-knuckled willpower that exhausts itself in spectacular fashion. I speak of something far more sustainable, the quiet, unshakable authority of a mind that knows itself. Consider how water shapes stone, not through force, but through consistent action. This is how lasting habits are built, not through violence against the self, but through steady, deliberate governance of your thoughts and actions. The path I offer you is not easy, It requires you to develop what few ever achieve: complete sovereignty over yourself. You must learn to act not because you feel inspired, but because you have commanded it, not because the path is pleasant, but because it is right. This is the foundation upon which all unbreakable habits are built, not on shifting sands of motivation, but on the bedrock of inner command. Master this, and you master everything. In the chapters that follow, I will show you exactly how to build this kind of inner sovereignty, how to develop the kind of self-command that turns mere intentions into iron law. But first, you must ask yourself, are you ready to stop negotiating with yourself? Are you prepared to rule your inner empire with the resolve of an emperor? Because once you learn to command yourself with the authority of a true leader, every habit you choose to build becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Begin at dawn, the morning ritual of a Roman emperor. Picture the dawn breaking over the 7 hills of Rome. The city still sleeps, wrapped in the quiet darkness that precedes first light. But in the imperial palace, a single figure rises. No servants required, no external prompting needed. Despite the weight of an empire on his shoulders, despite the aches of a warrior's body, despite every comfort and luxury available to him, the emperor rises. Why? Because the most sacred battle of the day begins the moment you open your eyes. I want you to understand something crucial about this moment, this daily decision between comfort and duty. The warm embrace of your bed isn't just a physical comfort. It's the first test of your sovereignty. Every single morning you face a choice that will echo throughout your entire day. Will you command or will you submit? Most people fail to grasp the magnificent opportunity that each dawn presents. They see it as a burden, a dreaded interruption of their rest. But I tell you this, the morning is a battlefield where empires of habit are won or lost. Your first action sets the tone for every action that follows. When I rose before dawn, it wasn't because I had tasks waiting. It wasn't because I couldn't sleep. It was because this simple act, this dedication to rising when I commanded, not when I felt like it, was a declaration of power over myself. Every morning became a victory, a testament to my will's supremacy over my body's desires. Let me share with you the framework I developed, one that has survived centuries because it aligns with the deepest truths of human nature. First, you must prepare for dawn the night before. A Roman soldier doesn't sharpen his sword in the middle of battle. He prepares his weapons in advance. Your evening routine is your preparation for tomorrow's victory. Set out your clothes. Clear your mind through reflection. Position everything you need for your morning ritual where it will be readily accessible. Second, understand that the moment of waking is sacred. In those first conscious breaths, your mind is most vulnerable to negotiation. This is when the undisciplined mind begins its bargaining. Just 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve more rest. These thoughts are not you. They are tests of your command. Meet them with imperial authority. The physical act of rising should be immediate and decisive. No hesitation, no checking of devices, no mental debate. Think of it as a military operation, swift, efficient, purposeful. Your body must learn that when the command to rise is given, it is obeyed without question. Here's what comes next, and pay attention, because this is crucial. Your first hour belongs to you, not to the world, not to others' demands, not to the chaos of information and obligation that awaits. This time is for building your inner citadel, for strengthening the foundations of your resolve. In my own practice, this hour began with cold water, a shock to the system that declared my mastery over comfort. Then, physical movement to awaken the body's strength. Following this, quiet contemplation and writing, reviewing my principles, setting my intentions, preparing my mind for the challenges ahead. You must establish your own sequence, but it should follow this pattern. Physical awakening, mental strengthening, spiritual preparation. Each component building upon the last, creating an unshakable foundation for the day ahead. But here's what most fail to understand about morning rituals. The power lies not in the specific actions, but in the consistent assertion of will over impulse. Each morning becomes a microcosm of self-governance. Each rise before dawn, a small but significant victory in the larger war for self-mastery. Some will tell you to start small, to ease into new habits gradually. But I tell you this, the mind respects boldness. When you declare with absolute certainty that you will rise at a specific time, when you back that declaration with immediate action, you demonstrate to yourself that your commands carry the weight of imperial decree. Remember, the emperor who cannot rule his own morning cannot hope to rule an empire. The person who cannot command their first hour cannot expect to command their life. Your morning ritual is not just about productivity or health. It is about establishing, reinforcing, and demonstrating your sovereignty over yourself. So tomorrow, when dawn approaches, ask yourself, will you rise like an emperor, commanding your day from its very first moments? Or will you rise like a slave, reactive to circumstance and bound by comfort? The choice, as always, remains yours. But know this, how you begin your day will determine how you live your life. The war within. Why habits fail without inner command? Look around you. What do you see? A world of broken resolutions, abandoned goals, failed attempts at change. Perhaps you know this battlefield well. The countless times you've declared this. Time will be different, only to find yourself back where you started, fighting the same old wars against the same old habits. But I ask you, have you ever wondered why the strongest among us seem unmoved by these struggles? Why certain individuals appear to operate on a different frequency entirely, their actions as consistent as the rising sun? The answer lies not in their circumstances, but in their command, their inner sovereignty, the same power that allowed me, as Emperor of Rome, to rise before dawn each day to attend to my duties, not because I felt inspired, but because it was necessary. The same force that compelled me to write my reflections each night, even as war raged at our borders and plague ravaged our cities. You see, most people approach habits as if they were delicate negotiations with themselves. They bargain with their weaknesses, make deals with their desires. I'll start Monday, just this once, when I feel more motivated. They treat their own minds as if they were unruly subjects to be appeased rather than governed. This is why they fail. True habit formation begins with a fundamental shift in understanding. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are the power that observes them, commands them, transcends them. Just as an emperor does not beg his legions to follow orders, you must not plead with yourself to act rightly. Think of your mind as a vast empire. Within its borders wage constant battles between duty and desire, between principle and impulse. Without strong central command, this empire fractures, habits break, discipline crumbles. But with proper governance, with true inner sovereignty, even the most turbulent thoughts bow to your will. I have seen men of great privilege squander their potential through weak self-command. And I have seen slaves, yes, slaves, achieve moral greatness through iron discipline. The difference was never in their circumstances. It was in their relationship with themselves. This is the first principle you must understand. External forces can influence your actions, but they cannot command them. Only you possess that power. When you truly grasp this, when you stop blaming your environment, your emotions, your past failures, you begin to access the kind of strength that reshapes destinies. But understand this. I do not speak of tyrannical self-control, of white-knuckled willpower that exhausts itself in spectacular fashion. I speak of something far more sustainable, the quiet, unshakable authority of a mind that knows itself. Consider how water shapes stone, not through force, but through consistent action. This is how lasting habits are built, not through violence against the self, but through steady, deliberate governance of your thoughts and actions. The path I offer you is not easy. It requires you to develop what few ever achieve, complete sovereignty over yourself. You must learn to act not because you feel inspired, but because you have commanded it. Not because the path is pleasant, but because it is right. This is the foundation upon which all unbreakable habits are built. Not on shifting sands of motivation, but on the bedrock of inner command. Master this, and you master everything. In the chapters that follow, I will show you exactly how to build this kind of inner sovereignty, how to develop the kind of self-command that turns mere intentions into iron law. But first, you must ask yourself, are you ready to stop negotiating with yourself? Are you prepared to rule your inner empire with the resolve of an emperor? Because once you learn to command yourself with the authority of a true leader, every habit you choose to build becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Begin at dawn, the morning ritual of a Roman emperor picture, the dawn breaking over the 7 hills of Rome. The city still sleeps, wrapped in the quiet darkness that precedes first light. But in the imperial palace, a single figure rises. No servants required, no external prompting needed, despite the weight of an empire on his shoulders, despite the aches of a warrior's body, despite every comfort and luxury available to him, the emperor rises. Why? Because the most sacred battle of the day begins the moment you open your eyes. I want you to understand something crucial about this moment, this daily decision between comfort and duty. The warm embrace of your bed isn't just a physical comfort. It's the first test of your sovereignty. Every single morning, you face a choice that will echo throughout your entire day. Will you command or will you submit? Most people fail to grasp the magnificent opportunity that each dawn presents. They see it as a burden, a dreaded interruption of their rest. But I tell you this, the morning is a battlefield where empires of habit are won or lost. Your first action sets the tone for every action that follows. When I rose before dawn, it wasn't because I had tasks waiting. It wasn't because I couldn't sleep. It was because this simple act, this dedication to rising when I commanded, not when I felt like it, was a declaration of power over myself. Every morning became a victory, a testament to my will's supremacy over my body's desires. Let me share with you the framework I developed, one that has survived centuries because it aligns with the deepest truths of human nature. First, you must prepare for dawn the night before. A Roman soldier doesn't sharpen his sword in the middle of battle. He prepares his weapons in advance. Your evening routine is your preparation for tomorrow's victory. Set out your clothes. Clear your mind through reflection. Position everything you need for your morning ritual, where it will be readily accessible. Second, understand that the moment of waking is sacred. In those first conscious breaths, your mind is most vulnerable to negotiation. This is when the undisciplined mind begins its bargaining. Just 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve more rest. These thoughts are not you. They are tests of your command. Meet them with imperial authority. The physical act of rising should be immediate and decisive. No hesitation, no checking of devices, no mental debate. Think of it as a military operation, swift, efficient, purposeful. Your body must learn that when the command to rise is given, it is obeyed without question. Here's what comes next, and pay attention, because this is crucial. Your first hour belongs to you, not to the world, not to others' demands, not to the chaos of information and obligation that awaits. This time is for building your inner citadel, for strengthening the foundations of your resolve. In my own practice, this hour began with cold water, a shock to the system that declared my mastery over comfort. Then, physical movement to awaken the body's strength. Following this, quiet contemplation and writing, reviewing my principles, setting my intentions, preparing my mind for the challenges ahead. You must establish your own sequence, but it should follow this pattern: physical awakening, mental strengthening, spiritual preparation. Each component building upon the last, creating an unshakable foundation for the day ahead. But here's what most fail to understand about morning rituals. The power lies not in the specific actions, but in the consistent assertion of will over impulse. Each morning becomes a microcosm of self-governance. Each rise before dawn, a small but significant victory in the larger war for self-mastery. Some will tell you to start small, to ease into new habits gradually. But I tell you this, the mind respects boldness. When you declare with absolute certainty that you will rise at a specific time, when you back that declaration with immediate action, you demonstrate to yourself that your commands carry the weight of imperial decree. Remember, the emperor who cannot rule his own morning cannot hope to rule an empire. The person who cannot command their first hour cannot expect to command their life. Your morning ritual is not just about productivity or health. It is about establishing, reinforcing, and demonstrating your sovereignty over yourself. So, tomorrow, when dawn approaches, ask yourself, will you rise like an emperor, commanding your day from its very first moments? Or will you rise like a slave, reactive to circumstance and bound by comfort? The choice, as always, remains yours. But know this, how you begin your day will determine how you live your life. Do the work nature assigned. You listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you strikes at the very heart of lasting habit formation. Most people fail to build enduring habits not because they lack discipline, but because they're building the wrong habits, habits that fight against their nature rather than flowing from it. I learned this truth not in the comfort of philosophical discourse, but in the crucible of imperial rule. You see, I never wanted to be emperor. My nature drew me toward philosophy, toward contemplation, toward the quiet pursuit of wisdom. Yet fate placed me at the head of an empire. The key to my success, and the key to your transformation, was not in fighting against this assigned role, but in understanding how to align my nature with my duties. This is what the Greeks called telos, your essential purpose, the work nature designed you to do. Think of a lion. Does it wake each morning questioning whether it should be a lion today? Does it try to eat grass like a deer or swim like a fish? No, it embraces its nature fully, and in doing so, becomes unstoppable within its domain. Yet here you are, trying to force habits that contradict your essential nature, fighting against the very current of your being. This is why so many of your habits feel like constant warfare. You're not just building habits, you're fighting yourself. Let me share with you the framework I developed for aligning habits with nature. First, you must understand your true nature. Not the nature others assign to you, not the nature you wish you had, your actual nature. What tasks energize you? What work feels like a natural expression of your being? What activities make time disappear? These are clues to your telos. Second, examine your current habits through this lens of natural alignment. Are you forcing yourself to rise at dawn because someone told you all successful people do? Or does early rising align with your naturals? Rhythms? Are you building habits based on others' expectations or on your true nature? But here's the crucial point that most miss. Your nature is not an excuse for weakness. It's a guide for strength. When I realized that my philosophical nature could make me a better emperor, not despite it, but because of it, everything changed. My contemplative habits became tools for justice. My love of wisdom became an asset in governance. Consider how this applies to your own habit formation. If your nature is analytical, don't force yourself into spontaneous, unstructured habits. Build habits that leverage your love of systems and order. Create detailed tracking mechanisms. Break everything down into logical sequences. If your nature is creative, don't shackle yourself to rigid, inflexible routines. Build habits that allow for variation within structure. Create frameworks that guide rather than confine. If your nature is social, don't force yourself into isolated habits. Build habits that incorporate connection. Even solitary tasks can be enhanced through shared accountability or community support. This is how you build habits that last, not through force but through alignment. But remember this, nature assigned you not just abilities, but duties. Your telos includes obligations to your community, your family, your own growth. These are not burdens to resist, but opportunities to fulfill your nature at its highest level. I want you to understand something profound about this approach. When you align your habits with your nature, discipline becomes less about forcing yourself to act and more about expressing who you truly are. The war within ceases. The resistance melts away. Think of water flowing downstream. It moves with tremendous power, yet expends minimal energy because it flows in alignment with its nature. This is how your habits should feel. Powerful, but natural, effective, but effortless. Here's your task. Take your most challenging habit, the one you've been fighting to maintain. Now, instead of forcing it, ask yourself, how can I adapt this habit to align with my nature? How can I make this feel like a natural expression of who I am, rather than a battle against myself? Some will say this is too easy, that real growth only comes through resistance. They misunderstand. Aligning with your nature doesn't mean avoiding challenge. It means engaging with challenges that resonate with your essential being. Remember, the oak tree doesn't strain to reach the sky. It simply grows according to its nature. Your habits should do the same. They should feel like growth, not combat. Like expression, not suppression. This is the path to unbreakable habits, not through conquest of your nature, but through alliance with it. When you build habits that express rather than oppose your essential being, you create something truly unstoppable, the natural force of who you were meant to be. Obstacles are training grounds, not excuses. Let me tell you something that will forever change how you view the challenges in your path. The obstacle in your way is the way itself. This isn't philosophical wordplay. This is practical truth I learned. Leading armies, governing an empire, and battling personal afflictions that would have broken lesser resolves. When plague swept through Rome, most saw only death and chaos. I saw an opportunity to demonstrate leadership through crisis. When betrayal arose from within my own ranks, others saw disaster. I saw a chance to practice true forgiveness and strengthen the empire's unity. When my own body was racked with chronic pain, many expected weakness. Instead, I found new depths of mental fortitude. This is what I mean when I say, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But I see you shaking your head. You're thinking about your own obstacles, lack of time, energy, resources, the chaos of family life, the demands of work, the limitations of your circumstances. You've been treating these as valid reasons why you can't build stronger habits, maintain discipline, or achieve your goals. This ends today. Every obstacle you face is actually a hidden training ground. Every barrier is a chance to strengthen your resolve. Every challenge is an opportunity to prove that your habits are truly unbreakable. Let me share with you the framework I developed for transforming obstacles into advantages. First, you must understand that obstacles come in three forms: external, circumstances beyond your control; internal, your own thoughts, emotions, limitations; systemic, patterns and structures that seem to work against you. Most people stop at identification. They catalog their obstacles as a way to justify inaction. But you're going to do something different. You're going to analyze each obstacle not for how it hinders you, but for how it can strengthen you. Take external obstacles. Your schedule is chaotic? Perfect. This is your chance to develop flexibility in your habits to prove they can survive any circumstance. Your environment is hostile to your goals. Excellent. Now, you can build habits so strong they thrive even in adverse conditions. Internal obstacles? Even better. Your mind resists meditation. Each moment of resistance is a chance to practice mental discipline. Your body fights against exercise. Every step is now twice as valuable. in building unshakable resolve. Systemic obstacles. These are your greatest teachers. The very structures that seem to prevent your progress can become the framework that ensures it. A demanding job becomes your daily arena for practicing presence. A busy household becomes your testing ground for maintaining focus amid chaos. But here's what most fail to grasp. The goal isn't to overcome obstacles once. It's to build a system that turns obstacles into advantages automatically. This is how. Welcome the obstacle. Don't just accept it. Embrace it. When something stands in your way, say this: good. Here's a chance to strengthen my resolve. Analyze its nature. What exactly is challenging about this obstacle? What quality or skill would transform this barrier into a benefit? Adapt your approach. Don't try to force your original plan through the obstacle. Let the obstacle show you a better way. Document the lesson. Each obstacle overcome is a template for future victories. Build your own tactical handbook of transformed challenges. Let me give you a practical example from my own life. As emperor, I faced constant interruptions, an endless stream of decisions, emergencies, and demands. Most leaders saw this as a curse that prevented focused work. I transformed it into a practice of immediate presence and decisive action. Each interruption became a chance to demonstrate swift wisdom, to practice shifting attention without losing focus. This is the mindset. You must develop. See everything that stands in your way as raw material for your growth. Bad weather prevents your morning run. Run anyway, knowing you're building all-weather resilience. Too tired for your evening routine? Perfect. Now you can practice discipline precisely when it's hardest. Family commitments disrupting your habits? Use this to develop adaptable, rather than rigid practices. Some will say this is merely positive thinking. They're wrong. This is practical alchemy, the art of transforming life's lead into gold. This isn't about finding silver linings. It's about building strength through resistance, just as a muscle grows stronger under load. Remember this: every great achievement in history was built on transformed obstacles. Every strong habit is forged in the fire of challenge. Every unshakable discipline is tested by things that could shake it. So tomorrow, when you face resistance to your habits, when obstacles arise, when the universe seems to conspire against your goals, smile. You're not being blocked. You're being trained. These are not your excuses. These are your opportunities. Because once you learn to transform obstacles into advantages, you become truly unstoppable. Not because you face no challenges, but because every challenge makes you stronger. Build the wall. Brick by brick, day by day, look at the great walls of Rome. These structures that have stood for centuries, that have withstood barbarian hordes, that have outlasted empires. Do you think they were built in great dramatic gestures? No, they were built brick by brick, day by day, through the patient, relentless application of consistent effort. This is how unbreakable habits are built. Not through grand declarations or moments of inspiration, but through small, deliberate actions performed with religious consistency. I want you to understand something crucial about habit formation that most never grasp. The power lies not in the magnitude of the action, but in the inevitability of its execution. When I commanded Rome's legions, our strength came not from individual acts of heroism, but from the relentless precision of daily drills, from the unchanging discipline of routine. Think of each small action as a brick in your wall of habits. Each morning meditation, each mindful meal, each deliberate exercise, these are your bricks. Alone, they might seem insignificant. Together, properly laid and cemented by consistency, they become an impenetrable fortress of behavior. Let me share with you the architecture of unstoppable habits. First, understand the principle of minimum viable action. What is the smallest version of your habit that you can execute without fail? Don't tell me you'll meditate for an hour. Tell me you'll sit in silence for 1 minute. Don't promise to transform your entire diet. Tell me you'll eat one mindful meal. These are your foundation stones. Next, establish what I call virtue-driven sequencing. This is the art of stacking habits in a way that each action naturally flows into the next. Just as a wall is built in careful layers, your habits should build upon each other with architectural precision. Here's how you create this sequence. Begin with a keystone habit, one small action that creates natural momentum. For me, it was the morning cold water ritual. This single act of discipline set the tone for everything that followed. Link each subsequent habit to this foundation through logical or physical connection. After the cold water comes movement, because the body is already awakened. After movement comes meditation, because the mind is clear. After meditation comes writing, because insight flows naturally. Cement these connections through immediate succession, no gaps, no opportunities for resistance to creep in, one brick laid directly after another. But here's what most fail to understand about this process. The goal is not perfection in each action. The goal is unwavering consistency in their sequence. A slightly imperfect brick laid every day builds a stronger wall than perfect bricks laid sporadically. Let me give you a practical framework for this approach. Morning sequence. Wake, immediate rise, no negotiation. Physical awakening, cold water, movement. Mental preparation, breathing, meditation. Strategic planning, writing, reviewing principles. Each component flows naturally into the next, creating what I call behavioral momentum. The force of each completed action carries you into the next. But remember this crucial principle. The sequence must be protected at all costs. Better to execute a shortened version of each habit than to break the chain entirely. If time is short, you don't abandon the sequence, you compress it. 5 minutes of movement is better than no movement. 2 minutes of meditation is better than no meditation. Some will say this approach is too mechanical, too rigid. They misunderstand. This is not about becoming a machine. This is about building a foundation so strong that it can support true freedom. The paradox of discipline is that it creates liberation. Think of it this way. Each small action is not just a brick in your wall. It's a vote for who you are becoming. Every time you execute your sequence, no matter how small the individual actions, you are declaring, "This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is how I live." The power of this approach lies in its compound effect. Just as a single brick doesn't make a wall, a single day of habits doesn't transform a life. But day after day, brick after brick, the structure of your new identity rises. Here's your task. Take your most important habit and break it down to its smallest executable component. What is the minimum version you can perform without fail? Start there. Do it every day without exception, at the same time, in the same sequence. Don't worry about the size of the action. Don't concern yourself with immediate results. Focus entirely on laying each brick perfectly, on maintaining the unbroken sequence. Let time and consistency do their work, because here's what I promise you. When you approach habit formation with the patience of a builder and the precision of an architect, you create something that cannot be broken by motivation, mood, or circumstance. You create a structure as enduring as the walls of Rome, a fortress of behavior that will stand the test of time. Remember, the wall that stands for centuries begins with a single brick laid with perfect attention, followed by another and another day after day without end. Cut the noise. Eliminate what weakens you. There's a truth about power that every emperor learns, often too late. What you eliminate matters more than what you add. I commanded legions, controlled vast territories, wielded enormous influence. But my greatest strength came not from what I accumulated, but from what I deliberately removed from my life. In my time, it was the ceaseless chatter of the court, the endless parade of flatterers, the constant flow of unnecessary information. In your time, the enemies are different, but the principle remains the same. Your attention is under constant siege. Look at your life right now. Your devices buzz with notifications. Your mind drowns in news cycles. Your attention fractures under the weight of endless digital distractions. You try to build strong habits while allowing everything that weakens them to remain in your life. This ends today. Let me share with you the imperial art of elimination, the systematic removal of everything that dilutes your power. This isn't about simple minimalism. This is about strategic amputation of everything that bleeds your strength. First, understand this crucial principle. Every input you allow into your life either strengthens or weakens your habits. There is no neutral ground. That social media feed you scroll through, it's not harmless entertainment. It's actively undermining your attention span. Those notifications interrupting your focus, they're not just minor distractions. They're assassins of your discipline. Here's the framework I developed for systematic elimination. Audit your inputs ruthlessly. What information do you actually need versus what you habitually consume? Which relationships sharpen your resolve versus which drain your energy? What activities genuinely serve your purpose versus what merely fills time? Create clear boundaries. Designate specific times for information intake. Establish no technology zones and periods. Define non-negotiable spaces for deep work and reflection. Implement what I call strategic ignorance. Choose deliberately what you will not know. Decide intentionally what you will not participate in. Select consciously what battles you will not fight. But here's what most fail to understand about this process. The goal isn't to live in isolation. The goal is to create space for what truly matters. Just as a garden grows stronger when weeds are removed, your habits thrive when competing influences are eliminated. Let me give you a practical example from my own rule. As emperor, I was bombarded with gossip, court intrigue, and speculation about threats and conspiracies. I could have drowned in this sea of information. Instead, I created strict filters. Unless information required immediate action or contained genuine wisdom, it was eliminated from my attention. Apply this to your modern context. Your phone. Transform it from a source of weakness into a tool of strength. Remove every app that doesn't directly serve your development. No social media during productive hours. No notifications except from essential sources. Your environment. Clear it of everything that triggers poor habits. That snack drawer that undermines your diet? Remove it. The television that fights for attention during your reading time? Eliminate it. Your relationships. Be ruthless here. Which connections strengthen your resolve? Which weaken it? You cannot build unbreakable habits while maintaining relationships with those who break them. Some will say, this approach is extreme. They're right. But remember this. In a world designed to fracture your attention, maintaining focus is an extreme act. In an age built to weaken your resolve, building strength requires extreme measures. Here's your immediate task. Conduct a 24-hour elimination audit. Document every input that enters your consciousness, every notification, every conversation, every piece of content, every environmental trigger. Then ask yourself one question about each. Does this strengthen or weaken my chosen path? Be brutal in your assessment. Be imperial in your decisions. For anything that weakens you, you have two options. Eliminate it completely. Control it absolutely. There is no middle ground, no compromise, no maybe or sometimes. Remember this, nature abhors a vacuum. When you eliminate what weakens you, you create space for what strengthens you. When you cut out the noise, you can finally hear the signal. When you remove the trivial, you make room for the essential. This is how you build habits that cannot be broken, by first breaking everything that would break them. This is how you develop unshakable focus, by first shaking off everything that would distract it. Don't tell me you want stronger habits while your phone buzzes every 5 minutes with social media notifications. Don't speak to me of focus while surrounding yourself with chaos. Don't claim to seek wisdom while feeding your mind endless trivial information. Because here's the truth. Your life becomes clearer, stronger, and more purposeful, not by adding more but by strategically removing what weakens you. Every elimination is an act of power. Every no is a brick in your fortress of habits. So, begin now. Look around you. What needs to be eliminated? What needs to be controlled? What noise must be silenced so your signal can strengthen? Because once you master the art of elimination, once you learn to cut away everything that doesn't serve your growth, you become truly unstoppable. Not because you've gained more, but because you've strategically chosen to become less vulnerable, less distracted, less weak. Remember, the most powerful person in the room is often the one who needs the least to maintain their strength. Self-restraint is power, the habit of saying, no. Imagine for a moment. You're seated at an imperial feast. Before you lies every delicacy the empire can provide. Exotic fruits, rich wines, delicacies from distant lands. As emperor, you could indulge in any or all of it. Yet true power lies not in what you could consume, but in what you choose not to. This is a lesson I learned not in philosophy books, but through the raw experience of ruling an empire. The measure of your power is not what you can do, but what you can refuse to do. Not what you can have, but what you can voluntarily decline. You see, most people fundamentally misunderstand the nature of self-restraint. They see it as deprivation, as punishment, as the absence of freedom. They could not be more wrong. Self-restraint is not the enemy of power. It is power in its purest form. Think about this. Any undisciplined person can say yes to their impulses. Any slave to desire can grab what's in front of them. But to say no when every fiber of your being screams yes, that is the mark of true sovereignty. Let me share with you the framework I developed for building unshakable self-restraint. First, understand that every no is actually a deeper yes. When you refuse the immediate pleasure, you're saying yes to your longer-term sovereignty. When you decline the easy path, you're affirming your commitment to strength. The practice begins with small, daily choices. The extra portion of food you could eat but don't. The reactive response you could make, but hold back the comfort you could indulge in, but refuse. Each refusal is not an act of denial, but an assertion of power. You're not losing something, you're gaining control. But here's what most fail to grasp about self-restraint. It must be practiced from a position of ability, not inability. There's no power in refusing what you cannot have anyway. True power lies in refusing what you could easily take. As emperor, I could have indulged every appetite, pursued every pleasure, acted on every impulse. Instead, I chose to live simply, to eat plainly, to sleep on a hard bed. Not because I had to, but because I could. This voluntary restraint became a source of immense personal power. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. In physical habits, don't just exercise when you must. Refuse rest when you could take it. Don't just eat healthy when forced. Decline delicacies when they're freely offered. Don't just work when supervised. Maintain discipline when no one is watching. In mental habits, don't just avoid distractions when working. Refuse entertainment when you're free. Don't just focus when required. Decline scattered attention when you could indulge it. Don't just learn when taught. Reject mental laziness. When ease is available in emotional habits, don't just stay calm in peace. Refuse reaction when provoked. Don't just be disciplined in public. Maintain standards when alone. Don't just show restraint when watched. Practice it in private. Some will say, this approach is too austere, too demanding. They miss the point entirely. This is not about punishment, it's about power. Each act of voluntary restraint strengthens your command over yourself. Here's a practical implementation strategy. Start each day by identifying 3 things you could do or have, but will choose not to. Make these choices intentional, not circumstantial. The key is to feel the full weight of your ability to have or do something, and then exercise your power by declining it. Remember, the goal isn't to live a life of constant denial. The goal is to build the kind of inner strength that comes only from voluntary self-restraint. This is how you become truly unshakable, not by having everything, but by needing nothing. Let me give you a personal example. As emperor, I was offered the finest wines at every meal. Instead of declining them out of duty or health, I would pour a cup, let it sit before me, and choose not to drink it. The power was not in not having it. The power was in having it and choosing no. This is the level of self-restraint you must develop. Not the desperate resistance of someone fighting temptation, but the calm refusal of someone who has transcended it. Practice this daily. Pour the wine, don't drink it. Prepare the feast. Eat simply. Create the opportunity. Choose restraint, because here's what I promise you. When you master the art of voluntary self-restraint, you develop a kind of power that cannot be taken away. No external circumstance can break someone who has mastered the ability to say no to themselves. This is how you build unbreakable habits, not through force of will, but through the quiet power of voluntary restraint. Not through constant struggle against desire, but through the calm transcendence of it. Remember, the strongest person in any room is not the one who can have anything they want. It's the one who can refuse anything they could have. This is true power. This is true freedom. This is the path to becoming truly unstoppable. Prepare for the storm. Mental rehearsal and premeditatio malorum. Listen carefully, because I'm about to share with you one of the most powerful practices in the arsenal of habit formation, one that most modern teachings completely ignore. It's called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and it's how you make your habits truly unbreakable. As emperor, I couldn't afford to be caught unprepared. Every morning before the sun rose, I would systematically imagine everything that could go wrong that day, not out of pessimism, but out of strategic foresight. Assassinations, betrayals, natural disasters, I rehearsed them all in my mind, preparing my responses, strengthening my resolve. This is what most people fail to understand about building lasting habits. It's not enough to plan for success. You must actively prepare for failure, not to dwell on it, but to remove its power to surprise and derail you. Let me share with you the exact method I developed for making habits stormproof. First, understand the 3 levels of potential disruption: external chaos, circumstances beyond your control; internal resistance, your own thoughts and feelings; systematic breakdown, the collapse of your support structures. For each habit you're building, you must mentally rehearse how you'll handle disruption at each level. This isn't negative thinking. This is strategic preparation. Here's the framework. Morning visualization. What could prevent this habit today? What internal resistance might I face? What external obstacles might arise? How will I respond to each? Scenario planning. If X happens, then I will do Y. If I feel Z, then I will respond with W. If everything falls apart, my minimum viable action is... But here's what most fail to grasp about this practice. The goal isn't to predict exactly what will go wrong. The goal is to develop an unshakable confidence that you can handle whatever goes wrong. Let me show you how this works in practice. Take your morning exercise habit. Don't just plan how you'll exercise. Mentally rehearse. What if it rains? Roy, I have my indoor routine ready. What if I'm exhausted? I have my low-energy sequence prepared. What if I'm interrupted? I have my minimal effective dose defined. What if I'm sick? I have my recovery protocol established. What if I'm traveling? I have my travel-adapted version ready. This isn't anxiety or overthinking. This is mental preparation at its highest level. Just as a general plans for multiple battlefield scenarios, you're planning for multiple habit scenarios. Some will say this practice breeds negativity. They're wrong. This practice breeds invincibility. When you've mentally rehearsed every possible form of disruption, nothing can shake you. You've already seen it, planned for it, prepared your response. Here's your daily premeditatio malorum practice. Morning review. What are my key habits for today? What could potentially disrupt each one? What is my specific response to each disruption? Scenario deepening. How would I maintain this habit if I lost my job? How would I adapt it if I became ill? How would I preserve it during a crisis? Response preparation. What's my minimum viable version of this habit? What's my backup system if primary fails? What's my emergency protocol? But remember this crucial point. You're not dwelling on these scenarios. You're disarming them. Each potential problem you identify and prepare for becomes one less thing that can break your habits. Let me give you a personal example. When I ruled Rome, I didn't just hope for peace. I prepared for war. I didn't just pray for health. I prepared for plague. This wasn't pessimism. It was pragmatism. When these things actually happened, I wasn't shocked or dismayed. I was ready. Apply this to your habits. Don't just hope you'll stay motivated. Prepare for when you won't be. Don't just expect perfect conditions. Prepare for imperfect ones. Don't just count on support. Prepare for isolation. This preparation must be specific and actionable, not just, I'll find a way, but I will do exactly this. Not just, I'll handle it, but here's my precise response. Not just, I'll adapt, but here's my adaptation protocol, because here's what I promise you. When you practice premeditatio malorum regularly, you develop a kind of psychological immunity to disruption. Your habits become not just strong, but anti-fragile, actually strengthening under pressure and chaos. This is how you build truly unbreakable habits, not by avoiding problems, but by preparing so thoroughly for them that they lose their power to derail you. Not by hoping for the best, but by being ready for anything less than the best. Remember, the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. The time to prepare for habit disruption is before it occurs. Don't wait for the storm to learn how to sail. Prepare now in calm waters for the tempests that will surely come. Because once you master this practice, once you learn to rehearse and prepare for every possible form of disruption, you become truly unstoppable. Not because you'll never face problems, but because no problem will find you unprepared. Discipline is kindness in disguise. There's a profound misunderstanding that I must correct, one that has poisoned the modern approach to habit formation. Too many see discipline as a form of self-punishment, as if every act of restraint were an act of cruelty against oneself. They couldn't be more wrong. Let me tell you what I learned leading armies, governing an empire, and most importantly, governing myself. True discipline is the highest form of self-respect. It is not the voice of a harsh taskmaster, but the gentle, unwavering hand of a wise guardian protecting what matters most. Think about how you treat something you truly value, a precious artifact, a rare manuscript, a priceless jewel. You don't treat it casually. You don't expose it to unnecessary risk. You protect it, maintain it, honor its worth. This is how you must approach yourself. The habits you build are not chains to bind you. They are walls to protect you. The disciplines you maintain are not punishments to endure. They are gifts you give to your future self. Let me share with you the framework I developed for compassionate discipline. First, understand that every act of discipline is an act of self-care. When you rise early, you're not punishing yourself. You're giving yourself the gift of sacred morning hours. When you maintain physical discipline, you're not torturing your body, you're honoring its capabilities. When you resist distraction, you're not depriving yourself. You're protecting your mental sovereignty. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. True kindness often feels uncomfortable in the moment. Just as a physician's treatment may cause temporary discomfort to create lasting health, proper self-discipline may feel challenging while building lasting strength. Consider how a loving parent guides a child. They maintain boundaries not to restrict but to protect. They enforce standards not to punish but to elevate. They instill discipline not to control but to empower. This is how you must approach your own habit formation. Not with the harsh voice of a critic, but with the firm, loving hand of a wise guardian. Let me give you the practical framework. Morning self-dialogue. Replace I have to with I choose to. Replace I should with I honor myself by. Replace I must force myself with I give myself the gift of. Reframe your disciplines. Exercise becomes, I honor my body's need for movement. Meditation becomes, I give myself the gift of mental clarity. Early rising becomes, I create sacred space for my growth. Practice disciplined compassion. When you falter, respond with understanding, but maintain standards. When you struggle, acknowledge the difficulty, but reaffirm your commitment. When you succeed, celebrate not just the achievement, but the self-respect it represents. Some will say this approach is too soft, that real discipline requires harshness. They misunderstand the nature of true strength. The harshest critic often masks the deepest weakness. The most enduring discipline flows from self-respect, not self-hatred. Let me share a personal example. As emperor, I could have lived in excessive luxury, indulged every whim, satisfied every desire. Instead, I chose to live simply, to maintain strict disciplines, not because I was punishing myself, but because I was honoring the office I held and the person I aspired to be. This is the mindset you must develop. Your disciplines are acts of self-respect. Your habits are expressions of self-love. Your standards are gifts to your future self. Here's your daily practice for compassionate discipline. Morning affirmation. Today, I choose disciplines that honor who I am and who I am becoming. Each act of discipline is an act of self-respect. Mindful execution. Before each disciplined action, pause. Acknowledge that this choice is an act of self-care. Proceed with gratitude for your own commitment to growth. Evening review. Reflect on how your disciplines served you. Appreciate your acts of self-respect. Plan tomorrow's expressions of self-care through discipline, but remember this crucial truth. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to consistently choose what honors your highest self. When you fall short, you respond not with harsh judgment, but with firm, compassionate recommitment. This is how you build habits that last, not through warfare with yourself, but through deep respect for yourself, not through harsh criticism, but through unwavering commitment to your own growth. Because here's what I promise you. When you approach discipline as an act of self-respect, something remarkable happens. The resistance melts away. The internal battles cease. What remains is the quiet confidence of someone who knows they're caring for themselves in the deepest possible way. Remember, the strictest parent isn't necessarily the best parent. The most effective emperor isn't necessarily the most severe. And the strongest habits aren't built through harshness, but through consistent, compassionate commitment to what serves your highest good. Your disciplines are not your prison. They are your palace. Your habits are not your chains. They are your crown. Wear them with pride, maintain them with love, and let them elevate you to the highest expression of who you can become. Practice in public. Aligning identity with action. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because this principle separates those who merely perform habits from those who embody them. True character is revealed not in what you do when all eyes are upon you, but in the perfect alignment between your public and private actions. As emperor, I lived under constant observation, every action scrutinized, every decision analyzed, every habit examined. Yet what gave me genuine authority wasn't the performance of virtue for others. It was the unwavering consistency between who I was in the public eye and who I was in private moments. This is what most fail to understand about lasting habit formation. It's not about what you do. It's about who you become. And who you become must be the same person in every arena of your life. Let me share with you the framework I developed for building habits that transcend the public-private divide. First, understand the 3 levels of a habit practice. Surface level. Actions performed for others to see identity level. Actions aligned with who you believe you are. Character level. Actions that flow naturally from your core being. Most people never progress beyond the surface level. They maintain habits when others are watching, then abandon them in private. This creates what I call the character gap, the space between who you appear to be and who you truly are. Here's how to close this gap. Public practice. Perform your habits openly, not for show, but for accountability. Welcome observation as a test of your conviction. Use social pressure as a tailwind, not your primary motivation. Private discipline. Maintain the same standards when alone. Practice habits with the same precision in solitude. Hold yourself accountable without external pressure. Identity integration. Align your actions with your chosen identity. Make decisions based on who you are becoming. Let your habits reflect your core principles. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. The goal isn't to perform perfectly in public. The goal is to maintain such consistent private standards that public performance becomes merely an extension of who you are. Let me share a personal example. In my private chambers, I wrote my reflections not for publication, not for praise, but as a dialogue with myself. These writings, what you now call meditations, were never intended for other eyes. Yet they reflected the same principles I lived by in public. This wasn't coincidence. This was character. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. If you're building a meditation practice, don't just meditate when others can see. Don't just maintain calm when people are watching. Don't just practice presence when it's convenient. Instead, meditate with the same dedication alone as you would in a group. Maintain equanimity. Whether observed or unobserved, practice presence in every moment, seen or unseen. Some will say this level of consistency is impossible, that everyone has a public and private face. They misunderstand the nature of true character. It's not about being perfect, it's about being authentic in all contexts. Here's your practical framework for habit integrity. Morning integration. Set your standards for the day. Commit to maintaining them, regardless of circumstances. Prepare for both public and private challenges. Environmental design. Create spaces that support your habits everywhere. Remove the distinction between performance and practice. Make your private environment as conducive to good habits as your public one. Identity reinforcement, regular reflection on who you're becoming. Alignment, check between actions and identity. Adjustment of habits to support authentic expression. But remember this crucial point. This isn't about performing. This isn't about proving anything to anyone. This is about building such strong habits that they become inseparable from who you are. Think of it this way. A tree doesn't grow one way in the light and another in shadow. It grows according to its nature, regardless of who's watching. Your habits should do the same. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Audit your habits. Which ones change when others are watching? Which ones disappear in private? Which ones truly reflect who you want to become? Eliminate the performance gap. Raise your private standards to match your public ones, or better yet, raise your public standards to match your private excellence. Remove the energy drain of maintaining different versions of yourself. Practice radical consistency. Choose habits that you're willing to maintain everywhere. Build systems that support your practice in all contexts. Let your character, not circumstances, dictate your actions. Because here's what I promise you. When you achieve this alignment between public and private practice, between outer action and inner identity, you create something remarkable. Habits that are truly unbreakable because they're simply expressions of who you are. Remember, the most powerful person in any room isn't the one who can perform the best. It's the one who remains exactly who they are, regardless of the room they're in. This is how you build habits that last, not through compartmentalization, but through integration. Not through performance, but through authentic expression of your chosen identity. Track the virtues, not just the metrics. There's a fundamental error in modern habit tracking that I must address, one that threatens to turn the noble pursuit of self-improvement into a shallow game of numbers. You count steps, track calories, measure minutes meditated, but I ask you, what good are 10,000 steps if they're taken in the wrong direction? What use are hours of meditation if they don't transform your character? As emperor, I didn't measure success by the size of the empire, but by the justice of its governance. I didn't count victories in battle, but evaluated the wisdom of each. Engagement, this is what I learned. True progress cannot be captured merely in numbers. It must be measured in the currency of character. Let me share with you the framework I developed for tracking what truly matters, the virtuous qualities that make habits meaningful. First, understand the 4 cardinal virtues that all worthy habits must serve. Wisdom, the ability to discern right action. Justice, the alignment with what is right. Courage, the strength to maintain what is right. Temperance, the moderation that preserves what is right. Every habit you track must be evaluated through these lenses. But here's what most fail to grasp. These virtues aren't abstract concepts. They're practical measures of genuine progress. Here's how to implement virtue tracking in your daily practice. Morning preview. What opportunities for wisdom will today present? Where might justice be required? When will courage be tested? How will temperance be challenged? Action evaluation. Was this habit performed with understanding or merely routine? Did this action serve the greater good or just personal gain? Did I maintain my principles when challenged? Was moderation preserved in pursuit of goals? Evening review. How did my habits express wisdom today? Where did my actions align with justice? When did I display courage? How did I maintain temperance? But remember this crucial distinction. We're not abandoning metrics entirely. We're elevating them by adding the essential dimension of virtue. Think of it as a moral calibration of your quantitative tracking. Let me give you a practical example. Don't just track your exercise minutes. Track wisdom. Was this training appropriate for my body's needs? Justice. Did this practice serve my long-term well-being? Courage. Did I push through legitimate challenges, not reckless limits? Temperance. Did I maintain balance in intensity? And recovery? For meditation, don't just log your minutes of silence. Evaluate. Wisdom. Did I gain genuine insight? Justice. Did this practice make me more equanimous with others? Courage. Did I face difficult thoughts with presence? Temperance. Did I maintain the middle path between effort and ease? Some will say this approach is too complex, that simple metrics are more manageable. They miss the point entirely. Virtue tracking isn't about complexity, it's about depth, about ensuring your habits build not just behaviors, but character. Here's your practical framework for virtue tracking. Create a virtue journal. Daily entry for each cardinal virtue. Specific examples of virtue expressed through habits. Areas where virtue was tested or compromised. Habit virtue matrix. List your key habits vertically. Place the 4 virtues horizontally. Daily. Mark where habits and virtues intersected. Note specific instances of virtue. Expression. Weekly virtue review. Patterns of virtue expression. Areas needing stronger virtue alignment. Opportunities for deeper integration. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about perfect scores or unbroken streaks. It's about the quality of your engagement with each habit. About ensuring that your actions aren't just consistent, but consistently meaningful. Remember, a habit performed without virtue is like a body without a soul. It may function, but it lacks true life. Here's your daily practice. Morning virtue. Setting. Today I will perform my habits with the wisdom to understand their purpose, the justice to serve the highest good, the courage to maintain them under pressure, the temperance to keep them balanced. Evening virtue. Reflection. Today, my habits expressed, wisdom through, justice through, courage through, temperance through. This is how you build habits that transcend mere behavior change and become transformative practices. Not just tracking what you do, but who you become through what you do. Because here's what I promise you, when you begin tracking virtues alongside metrics, your habits take on new depth and meaning. They become not just actions to perform, but opportunities to express the highest qualities of human character. Remember, the quality of your habits is not measured by their quantity, but by their virtue. A single action performed with full wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is worth more than countless actions done without virtue. This is how you build habits that last, not through obsession with numbers, but through dedication to virtue. Not through tracking alone, but through transformation. Not through measuring what you do, but through becoming who you are meant to be. Time is a non-renewable resource. Look at the sundial's shadow. Watch it move. You cannot stop it. You cannot slow it. You cannot bargain with it. Each moment passes, never to return. This is not morbid philosophy. This is the most practical reality you must grasp if you wish to build habits that matter. As emperor, I face daily the weight of mortality, not just my own, but the collective mortality of an empire. Plague swept through our cities. Wars claimed our youth. Time showed no mercy, no favoritism, not even to those who wore the purple. This is what most fail to understand about habit formation. It's not just about what you do. It's about the urgency with which you do it. Every delayed habit, every postponed practice, every "I'll start tomorrow" is a small death of opportunity that you'll never get back. Let me share with you the framework I developed for time-conscious habit building. First, understand the three temporal truths. The past is unchangeable. The future is uncertain. The present is all you have. This isn't philosophy, this is strategy. When you truly grasp these truths, procrastination becomes impossible. Delay becomes unthinkable. Every moment becomes an opportunity that cannot be wasted. Here's how to implement this awareness. Morning mortality meditation. Acknowledge that this day could be your last. Recognize each habit as a final opportunity. Approach each practice with the urgency it deserves. Time audit. Track where your hours actually go. Eliminate time debt activities. Invest in habits that compound death-aware planning. Schedule as if tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Prioritize what truly matters. Execute with focused intensity. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. This isn't about rushing. It's not about panic. It's about bringing crystal clarity to how you spend the only truly non-renewable resource you have, time. Let me share a personal practice from my years as emperor. Each morning I would say to myself, "You may not live to see the evening." Each evening, "You may not wake to see the dawn." This wasn't depression, this was activation. Because when you truly grasp the finite nature of time, you approach your habits with a different level of commitment. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. Don't say, "I'll start my meditation practice next week." Ask yourself, if I had only this week to live, would I not want to know the peace of a quiet mind? Don't say, "I'll begin writing when I have more time." Ask yourself, if I had only this month to live, would I not want to leave behind my thoughts, my insights, my wisdom? Don't say, "I'll get in shape when things settle down." Ask yourself, if I had only this year to live, would I not want to experience the full vitality of my body? Some will say this perspective is too intense, too heavy for daily habit formation. They misunderstand the power of mortality awareness. It's not about dwelling on death. It's about being fully alive to each moment. Here's your practical framework for time-conscious habits. Daily time reflection. Morning. How will I spend this gift of 24 hours? Noon. Am I investing this day wisely? Evening. Did I use this day as if it were my last? Habit urgency. Assessment. What habits can no longer wait? What practices must begin today? What actions would I regret not taking? Legacy planning. What habits will outlive me? What practices will benefit others? What actions will echo through time? But remember this crucial point. The goal isn't to create pressure or anxiety. The goal is to develop such clarity about the preciousness of time that procrastination becomes impossible. Think of it this way. Every moment you waste is a moment you can never get back. Every habit you delay is a transformation forever postponed. Every practice you postpone is a potential never realized. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Time value analysis. List your daily activities. Mark which ones you'd still do if you had 1 year to live. Eliminate or transform the rest. Mortality motivation. Begin each habit with full presence. Execute each practice as if it were your last. Complete each action with total commitment. Legacy leverage. Choose habits that build lasting impact. Develop practices that benefit others. Create routines that serve something greater than yourself. Because here's what I promise you. When you fully grasp the finite nature of time, procrastination becomes impossible. When you truly understand that each moment is precious and unrepeatable, habits become not obligations but opportunities. Remember, the sundial's shadow moves whether you watch it or not. Time passes whether you use it or waste it. Your habits will either be monuments to what you achieved with your time or memorials to what you could have done. This is how you build habits that last, not through casual commitment, but through the urgent awareness that time is the one resource you can never get back. Not through vague intentions, but through the crystal clear understanding that this moment, this practice, this opportunity will never come again. Delay gratification. Habits that outlast the rush. There's a fundamental truth about human excellence that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The path to lasting power lies not in seeking pleasure, but in voluntarily embracing difficulty. Not in chasing excitement, but in choosing what is challenging precisely because it is challenging. As emperor, I could have indulged in every pleasure Rome had to offer. Instead, I chose the soldier's bed, the philosopher's study, the steady path of discipline. Not because I had to, but because I understood something crucial. The sweetest pleasures are those earned through patient discipline. This is what most fail to grasp about habit formation. The greatest satisfaction doesn't come from what feels good now, but from what builds strength over time. Your most powerful habits will not be the ones that offer immediate rewards, but those that demand sustained investment. Let me share with you the framework I developed for building delay-oriented habits. First, understand the 3 levels of gratification. Immediate pleasure feels good now, fades quickly. Delayed satisfaction feels challenging now, rewards later. Compound excellence feels difficult now, transforms permanently. Most people never progress beyond the first level. They remain trapped in the cycle of immediate gratification, forever chasing the next quick reward. This is the path of weakness. Here's how to elevate your habits to the higher levels. Pleasure audit. Identify habits built on immediate reward. Recognize patterns of quick gratification. Map out long-term consequences. Delay training. Start with small voluntary difficulties. Gradually extend your patience threshold. Build capacity for sustained effort. Compound focus. Choose habits that accumulate value. Focus on practices that strengthen over time. Invest in actions that transform character. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. The goal isn't to eliminate pleasure. It's to elevate it, to transform it from a quick spark into a lasting flame. Let me give you a personal example. During military campaigns, I would intentionally expose myself to harsh conditions, not from masochism, but from understanding that voluntary hardship builds invincible strength. The satisfaction of maintaining composure in difficulty far outweighed any temporary comfort. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. Instead of seeking the easiest workout, choose the one that challenges your limits. Looking for the quickest meditation, choose the duration that tests your focus. Aiming for fast results, commit to practices that demand patience. Think of it this way: easy habits make weak people. Challenging habits forge strong character. Delayed gratification builds lasting power. Some will say this approach is too austere, too demanding. They misunderstand the nature of true pleasure. The deepest satisfactions in life come not from what is easy, but from what is earned through patient discipline. Here's your practical framework for delay-oriented habits. Morning choice. Point: identify the easy path and the worthy path. Consciously choose the more challenging option. Embrace difficulty as a path to strength. Gratification, delay, practice. Start with small delays. Build progressive waiting muscle. Celebrate. The power of patience investment mindset. View each difficult choice as a deposit track compound benefits over time. Focus on character transformation, but remember this crucial point. The goal isn't to suffer. The goal is to build the kind of strength that only comes through voluntary challenge. To develop the type of character that can delay gratification, not from deprivation, but from wisdom. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Challenge audit. List your current habits. Rate them by difficulty level. Intentionally increase challenge. Where needed, delay implementation. Choose one immediate pleasure, two postpone. Set progressive delay intervals. Notice growing strength in waiting. Compound tracking. Document long-term benefits. Record character developments. Celebrate delayed achievements. Because here's what I promise you. When you learn to delay gratification, when you build habits based on long-term value rather than immediate reward, you develop a kind of power that the pleasure seekers can never understand. Think of it like building a temple. Quick fixes are like wooden shacks, easy to build, quick to collapse. Delayed gratification habits are like marble monuments, difficult to construct, but lasting. For centuries, the temporary discomfort of delayed gratification is nothing compared to the permanent power it builds. The momentary challenge of choosing the harder path is insignificant next to the lasting strength it develops. Remember, the most valuable things in life are never available for immediate purchase. They must be earned through patient discipline, through sustained effort, through the steady accumulation of right choices. This is how you build habits that last, not by seeking what's easy, but by choosing what's worthy. Not by chasing quick pleasures, but by investing in lasting power. Not by avoiding difficulty, but by embracing it as the path to true strength. Because once you master the art of delayed gratification, once you learn to choose the worthy over the easy, the lasting over the quick, you become truly unstoppable. Not because you've eliminated desire, but because you've elevated it to serve your highest purpose. Train the body, sharpen the mind. There's a truth about human excellence that too many philosophers ignore. The mind and body are not separate realms, but one integrated system of power. As emperor, I didn't just study in libraries. I trained with the legions. I didn't just write meditations. I conditioned my body to serve my will. This is what most fail to understand about habit formation. Physical discipline isn't just about health or appearance. It's about forging the primary battlefield where all other habits are won or lost, the body itself. I lived with chronic pain throughout my reign, yet this very challenge taught me something crucial. The body is not a temple to be worshipped, but a forge where mental strength is hammered into shape. Every physical limitation becomes an opportunity to strengthen mental resolve. Let me share with you the framework I developed for using physical training to build unshakable habits. First, understand the 3 levels of physical practice. Basic, maintenance, keeping the body functional. Strategic development, building specific strengths. Imperial conditioning, forging complete mind-body mastery. Most never progress beyond basic maintenance. They exercise for health or appearance, missing entirely the deeper power of physical discipline. Here's how to elevate your physical practice. Morning physical ritual. Cold exposure strengthens voluntary control. Breath work masters autonomous. Systems movement practice establishes command over the body. Strategic training. Choose exercises that challenge both body and mind. Focus on movements that require full presence. Build progressive difficulty into every practice. Recovery as training. Use rest periods as mental discipline. Practice patience. During healing, transform limitations into strength. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. The goal isn't perfect physical condition. The goal is to use physical training as a laboratory for mental excellence. Let me share a personal example. During campaigns, I would train with the legionaries not to become the strongest, but to demonstrate and develop command over myself. Every push-up, every mile marched, every discomfort embraced was a lesson in voluntary hardship. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. Physical practices become mental training grounds. Each repetition teaches persistence. Every set builds decision strength. All discomfort develops emotional control. Here's your practical framework for body-mind integration. Morning physical assessment. Check bodily signals and tensions. Note areas of resistance. Set physical intentions for the day. Movement as meditation. Bring full attention to each exercise. Feel every muscle activation. Control each phase of movement. Discomfort. Dialogue. Welcome challenging sensations. Observe physical reactions. Maintain mental equilibrium. Some will say this approach is too intense, that physical training should be simpler. They miss the point entirely. We're not just building muscle, we're forging willpower. We're not just improving fitness, we're developing sovereignty over ourselves. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Physical baseline. Assess your current physical practices. Identify areas of avoidance. Note where comfort has bred weakness. Strategic physical development. Choose practices that challenge your limits. Build progressive difficulty. Maintain perfect form over ego. Mind-body integration. Link physical training to mental goals. Use body awareness for emotional control. Transform physical challenge into mental strength. But remember this crucial point. The body is not your enemy to be conquered, nor your master to be served. It is your primary tool for developing unshakable resolve. Think of it this way. Every workout is a lesson in perseverance. Every stretch is practice in patience. Every repetition builds decision strength. Here's your daily physical mental practice. Morning. Integration. Today I will move with complete presence. Welcome physical challenge. Use my body to strengthen my mind. Evening review. Today, my physical practice taught me where I need more discipline, how to maintain control, what strengths I'm developing. Because here's what I promise you. When you learn to use physical training as a forge for mental strength, something remarkable happens. Your habits become unbreakable, not because you've mastered your body, but because you've developed the kind of mind that doesn't break under any circumstance. Consider these training principles. Start where you are, not where you wish you were. Progress through intelligent challenge, not reckless intensity. Build strength through consistent practice, not sporadic effort. Remember, the strongest person in any room isn't the one who can lift the most weight, but the one who has complete command over themselves. Physical training is merely the most direct path to developing this command. This is how you build habits that last, not through mere physical development, but through the integration of body and mind into one unshakable system of power. Not through random exercise, but through strategic physical practice that forges mental strength. Because once you understand that every push-up is a lesson in persistence, every mile run is practice in patience, every weight lifted is an exercise in control, you transform physical training from mere bodily maintenance into a forge for unbreakable character. Your circle is your mirror. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because this principle has shaped empires and toppled kings. You are not just an individual forming habits. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your social circle isn't just a collection of relationships. It's a force that shapes your very character. As emperor, I learned this truth not from books, but from experience. I watched how great advisors elevated rulers and how corrupt influences destroyed them. I observed how entire legions would rise or fall based on the character of their commanders. This isn't philosophy. This is practical reality. Here's What? Most fail to understand about habit formation. No habit exists in isolation. Every practice you develop, every discipline you maintain, is either strengthened or weakened by the people around you. Let me share with you the framework I developed for building habits through strategic association. First, understand the three circles of influence: inner circle, daily contact, strongest impact; support circle, regular interaction, moderate influence; extended network, periodic contact, subtle effect. Most people leave these circles to chance, letting proximity and circumstance determine their associations. This is the path of the weak. Strong habits require strategic social architecture. Here's how to build your circles with intention. Inner circle audit. Who do you spend the most time with? What habits do they embody? How do they influence your choices? Strategic association. Identify people who embody your target habits. Create regular contact with strong examples. Minimize exposure to counterproductive influences. Circle management. Cultivate relationships that elevate, transform, or limit those that diminish. Eliminate those that destroy. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. This isn't about cold calculation or using people. It's about creating mutual elevation through conscious association. Let me share a personal example. I chose Rusticus as my teacher, not just for his knowledge, but for his living example of Stoic principles. I surrounded myself with generals who embodied courage, advisors who demonstrated wisdom, friends who practiced integrity. Each relationship was a mirror showing me who I could become. Consider how this applies to your habit formation. If you're building a meditation practice, connect with experienced meditators. Join communities of contemplative practitioners. Distance yourself from those who mock inner work if you're developing physical discipline. Train with those more advanced than you. Build relationships with disciplined athletes. Limit contact with those who encourage weakness. Some will say this approach is too selective, too discriminating. They misunderstand the nature of growth. Just as a garden can't flourish when surrounded by weeds, habits can't strengthen when surrounded by weakness. Here's your practical framework for relationship-based habit building. Morning social intention. Today I will seek out strengthening influences, contribute positive energy to others, guard against weakening associations. Relationship evaluation. Who inspires my best habits? Who challenges me to grow? Who subtly undermines my progress? Strategic connection. Schedule regular contact with strong examples. Create accountability partnerships. Build supportive communities. But remember this crucial point. You're not just choosing who to spend time with. You're choosing who you're becoming. Every relationship is a thread in the fabric of your character. Think of it this way. Weak associations breed weak habits. Strong connections forge strong practices. Strategic relationships build lasting power. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Social circle mapping. List your 5 closest associations. Evaluate their impact on your habits. Plan strategic adjustments, relationship development. Identify potential mentors. Create learning partnerships. Build accountability systems. Environment design. Structure your social surroundings for growth. Create spaces that foster strong habits. Eliminate environments that weaken resolve, because here's what I promise you. When you learn to build your social circle with the same strategic care that you build your habits, something remarkable happens. Your practices become not just personal disciplines, but shared strengths. Your habits become not just individual actions, but cultural norms. Remember these principles. Choose associations based on character, not convenience. Build relationships that demand your best. Create circles that elevate rather than diminish your daily practice should include conscious evaluation of social influences, strategic positioning among strong examples, careful management of weakening associations. This is how you build habits that last, not through isolation, but through strategic association. Not through random connections, but through carefully cultivated relationships that mirror and reinforce your highest aspirations. Because once you understand that every relationship either strengthens or weakens your habits, once you learn to build your social circle with strategic intention, you create an environment where strong habits aren't just possible, they're inevitable. Remember, the strongest habits are not built by individuals alone, but by individuals surrounded by those who demand and support excellence. Your circle is not just your mirror, it's your multiplier. Live today as if you'd chosen it, we come now to the final and perhaps most crucial lesson in building unbreakable habits, one that took me years of ruling an empire to truly understand. The goal is not perfection. The goal is not an unbroken streak of victories. The goal is to maintain unwavering commitment to your practice while accepting the imperfect nature of existence. I write these words not as some distant philosopher, but as someone who faced daily the gap between ideal and reality. As emperor, I dealt with betrayals, plagues, wars, and personal suffering, yet through it all, I maintained my practices not because I achieved perfection, but because I understood something deeper about the nature of lasting habits. Listen carefully, because this will transform how you approach every practice we've discussed. The strongest habits are not those that never face disruption. They are those that maintain their course despite disruption. The most powerful practices are not those that never meet failure. They are those that continue unchanged in the face of failure. Let me share with you the framework I developed for this final level of habit mastery. First, understand the 3 levels of practice. The beginner seeks perfection, breaks under failure. The striver tolerates imperfection, struggles with acceptance. The master embraces reality, maintains consistency. Most never reach the 3rd level because they're trapped in the pursuit of perfection. They don't understand that true mastery lies in the marriage of high standards and deep acceptance. Here's how to implement this understanding. Morning acceptance practice. Today, I will maintain my highest standards, accept whatever reality presents. Continue my practice regardless of circumstances. Resilient response protocol. When disruption comes, embrace it as natural. When failure occurs, treat it as information. When habits break, resume without drama. Evening integration. Review the day's practice without judgment. Note lessons without attachment. Prepare tomorrow's practice with renewed commitment. But here's what most fail to grasp about this approach. This isn't about lowering standards. This isn't about making excuses. This is about developing the kind of strength that doesn't need everything to be perfect in order to maintain its course. Let me share a personal example. During the Germanic campaigns, I maintained my writing practice in conditions that were far from ideal. Sometimes it was just a few lines scratched by candlelight. Sometimes it was mental composition during battle. The practice continued not because conditions were perfect, but because I had chosen this path regardless of conditions. Consider how this applies to all we've discussed. Morning ritual. Rise early when you can. Rise later when you must, but maintain the practice of conscious awakening. Adapt the form. Preserve the essence. Let each morning be a new commitment, regardless of yesterday's performance. Physical training. Train hard when strong. Train gently when weak, but maintain the practice of movement. Adjust the intensity. Keep the consistency. Let each session be its own practice, independent of past or future mental discipline. Meditate deeply when calm. Meditate briefly when stressed, but maintain the practice of presence. Modify the method. Protect the principle. Let each moment be a fresh opportunity for practice. Some will say this approach lacks rigor, that it makes too much room for imperfection. They misunderstand the nature of true strength. The rigidity that demands perfection is actually weakness in disguise. True strength flows like water, maintaining its essential nature while adapting to any container. Here's your final framework. For unbreakable habits, principle, protection, identify the core essence of each habit. Maintain that essence regardless of form. Let the practice evolve while the principle remains adaptive. Implementation. Create multiple versions of each habit. Build flexibility into every practice. Maintain momentum through adaptation. Continuous commitment. Renew your choice daily. Accept each day's reality. Maintain practice through all circumstances. Because here's what I promise you. When you learn to maintain your habits, not through perfection, but through persistent adaptation. When you learn to continue your practices, not despite reality, but including reality, you develop something far more powerful than an unbroken streak of successes. You develop unbreakable resolve. Remember these final principles. The strongest habits bend, but don't break. The deepest practices include all of reality. The truest discipline continues through everything. Your final practice should be this. Every morning, say to yourself, today I choose this path again. Today I accept whatever comes. Today I maintain my practice through all circumstances. This is how you build habits that truly last, not through rigid perfection, but through flexible persistence, not through demanding ideal conditions, but through embracing whatever conditions arise. Not through unbroken streaks, but through unshakable commitment. Because once you understand that the power of a habit lies not in its perfect execution, but in its consistent continuation, once you learn to maintain your practice through success and failure, pleasure and pain, ideal and challenging conditions, you become truly unstoppable. Remember, the goal is not to live perfectly, but to live deliberately. Not to achieve an unbroken streak of victories, but to maintain an unshakable commitment to practice. Not to eliminate all failures, but to continue unchanged despite them. This is your path now. You have the frameworks, you have the practices, you have the understanding. The only question that remains is, will you choose this path again today, tomorrow, and every day that follows? Regardless of what comes, the choice, as always, remains yours. Choose well.